Rabbi Ita Paskind. I probably am the newest rabbi in town. I just started on Monday at Olam Tikva in Fairfax, Virginia. And I was really thrilled to be able to see a couple of emails just about this wonderful event and be close enough to attend. So I know I'm representing a lot of rabbinical students who are my close friends in New York. Really wish they could be here. Some of whom have been in attendance at Women of the Wall events in the past year and have witnessed the arrests of Nofrat Frankel and of Anat Hoffman. And it really is painful to see those things, particularly as we just spoke about commemorating Tisha B'Av, but we're also about to read Parashat Bet Hanan, where we hear Moshe really beg, really plead with God to let him into the land of Israel, to be able to have that experience of entering the land which was destined for our people. And that is something that all Jews deserve to have, including women at the Kotel, the most holy site in the land of Israel for us. So it's great to be here with all of you and support them.
Hi, my name is Martin Kessel. I'm from Congregation Tifereth Israel. And the few words that were said about Klal Israel and the Kotel is something that is very meaningful to me. I lived in Jerusalem for many, many years, and I was one of those few people, actually not few, one of the 10,000 people, or more than that, who on Shavuot 1967 were the first people to actually walk to the wall, to see the wall in all its splendor. And since that time onwards, it has been a symbol for the whole people. And certainly the incidents that we saw happening last week on the video should never have been allowed to happen, should not be allowed to happen, and our standing here and protesting, and thanks to Shmuel for his initiative in doing this, is something that we should all be proud of.
Just as Linda, who was actually there that day, is going to say a few words, I want to just say one thing in case people have to leave. It's just incredible to see, every Jew is important, but it's just incredible to see so many rabbis representing different synagogues here, which I have to say, if we had tried to organize that, we probably wouldn't have been able to. So more are going to speak, but I want to just put this idea out there that we're all, as part of the Jewish community, we're going to see Ambassador Oren. We're going to run across him in our life, and he's a good man. And I want to say that we should encourage Ambassador Oren to do the right thing. And Ambassador Oren will be an ambassador for 2 years, 3 years. He should come out publicly and say that this arrest does not represent Israel. This arrest does not represent what he's about, and he's embarrassed about it. And I want to turn to you, Ambassador, and ask you to step forward. I asked the ambassador to come to our shul on Shabbat and say this. Say these words, that the arrest does not represent Israel, the arrest does not represent him. I'm turning to you now and to all the rabbis here when he visits your synagogue to ask him to voice these words publicly, because I can't tell you how many, the reason why we're here today is because how deeply it hurt. It's one thing if we get punched in our face by a person who we don't love, but when we get punched in our face by our brothers, by our sisters, by our mother, by our father, God forbid, it hurts even more. So Ambassador Oren, I'm asking you to come out and do the right thing. Linda was there that day when the Torah was taken from Anat.
Yeah, she did hold on to the end, and I was a few people behind her, so I can vouch for that, besides the video. It was a cooler morning in Jerusalem than it is right now. I got up at 5:45 to make sure I was there by 7, not wanting to miss a minute of Women of the Wall. When I lived in Israel a few years ago, every Rosh Chodesh I was there. And at that point we were mostly having the problem with the talitot. But moving on to the carrying the Torah, I remember that green duffel bag that had the Torah in it and how difficult it was to get it through security. So this past Monday, it was not taken by a woman. It was taken by Rabbi Levi Kelman, who actually brought it himself and got it through, and then transferred it over to the women. And when the service began, and throughout the Hallel, there was a lot of excitement. A lot of people were showing up. I think the word got out to many, many Jews who were in Jerusalem at that time for studies or for trips. So it was a very large group, it's between 150 and 160 women, and the men who were on the other side, the supportive men, husbands and rabbis and other men who were supportive. If you've ever prayed during Women of the Wall, it's a very special thing and beautiful, but it's also very difficult because you always have this noise off on the side. Noise and people cursing at you in Hebrew and English. It's very, very upsetting, but yet you continue. And as a group, you continue. And you gain strength from each other. And then Hallel got very, very exciting. And there was one woman who probably really pushed the envelope, a tourist from the United States, Cantor also. And her Hallel was beautiful. Her voice rang out. But it really irritated the policeman, the one that you see in the video. That really got to him. And once the Torah was starting to be carried by Anat, the idea was that we would sing together on the way to Robinson's Arch, which is not like a 2-second walk. You have to go out from the plaza, go down, if those of you are nodding your head, you can imagine doing this, down through security, and then you would usually turn left and pass the Davidson Center and come back around. Well, we got through as far as the security, and it was very tense at that point, but security makes you have to come into a smaller group, and it gets a little tighter, and that's when the police force really started. They kind of pushed away the people who were supporting Anat and were holding on to her from behind. They were like holding on to the Eitz Chaim and shaking it like, it just broke your heart to see this. And yet when they kind of got her separated and took her up to the right rather than to the left, we had no idea what was happening, where she was going, what were they taking her off for. And about 5 or 6 policemen stopped any of us from following her at that point. We went up a different route and saw her being shoved into the police car, still not knowing what was happening. I never knew there was a police station near the Migdal David, near the Jaffa Gate. I'd never been there. We continued to do Musaf there. Obviously, we didn't have a Torah to read a Torah with anymore because the Torah was with Anat. Actually, Nofrat said, I can read the Torah, but, there are probably people that have a much better voice. And finally, a young woman kind of just said, I'll do it. She was spectacular. It was like a gift to hear this woman read the Rosh Chodesh portion. The rest of the service went on with this different kind of fervor, because we were still all like, what happened here? What was this? It was very scary. I was close to Anat when they were starting to wrest the Torah from her, and I've never been in a stampede or anything, but I felt, like all this body power reaching toward me, and I looked, there was a wall, so I kind of stood against the wall, but I was pushed by other people against the wall, but at least I didn't tumble over, but it was rough. It was really rough. So I am glad to know that other people now heard my firsthand story. And Rhoda Ritzenberg and I had done a program at Addis Israel with their sisterhood a few weeks before that for Solidarity. And you can see us on the internet, on YouTube, because we did have a videographer. But if you'd like us to help plan a Solidarity program at your synagogue, with your youth, with your religious school, with your friends, whatever it is, we're both very pleased to help out with that.
Was Anat charged or released? What happened there?
Oh, okay. So I stayed after Musaf, we continued, the group kept dwindling. Some people stayed on and we sang supportive songs, and really with the idea that she would hear us through the windows. It's Israel, the windows were opened. I stayed for about an hour and a half afterwards. I've read that it took up to 5 hours for her to be released, with the condition that she's not going to go to the Kotel for another 30 days. Now, I didn't count the number of days, but it might be, that she can be there again before we know it.
And she was fine.
Yes, she was fine. I mean, she was stellar. I mean, you've probably heard her saying, "Zeshali, Zeshali," and every time that the police officer would tell her in Hebrew that, this is against the law, she said, "It's not against the law. There's no law in the Supreme Court. There's nothing in the Torah." He had nothing to be basing it on.